Welcome to What Lies Ahead. I'm your host, Chris Ruffini, lead singer of the Long Island band Overthrow. On my podcast, I explore everything related to the hardcore scene through the eyes of artists, promoters, and record labels. As always, please like and or subscribe on all social media platforms. On this episode, I'm joined by Dylan from Blind Path Booking and Dynamic Talent. He's been a key figure in North Carolina's music scene, booking shows that bring the biggest bands through the area while also creating Overcome Fest, a standout event in the region. Top of that, he plays in Lucky Feeling, a band that's put out several solid releases, plus an EP that just released, which we'll absolutely talk about. And we'll talk about how we're building a scene, the challenges of booking, and what's next for his projects. Dylan, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Of course, buddy. And we were chatting it up a little bit before you came on, and I had a list of the podcast, and when I started this, of people I wanted on here. Obviously, a lot of artists, promoters. I've had some labels coming on just to talk about their experiences doing all these things. And you check pretty much every box with it, and you've come up a lot on this podcast in terms of he'd be great to have on. He'd be great to have on. Meanwhile, you're already on the list of people that I was love to have to come on here. And I really, Dylan, appreciate you taking the time to come on here and able to talk about all this. So thank you for coming on.
For sure. I appreciate you wanting to hear me blab for a few minutes.
It's going to be great. So let's start from the beginning, man. So obviously getting into hardcore and this style of music, it always leads, where did it start for you in terms of music? And then obviously built into hardcore. And then if you remember what your first show was that you attended.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a small town, pretty much like an hour away from all major cities in North Carolina. So there wasn't really like a strong local scene. There's a few like metalcore, death metal bands, indie rock, whatever. Um, so when it came around the time that I started wanting to play in a band, there wasn't any people, promoting shows. It was just local bands setting up shows for each other. Um, Kind of go back a little further, getting into this type of music, like hardcore and adjacent stuff. My brother was, I think he was 6 years older than me. I think that's the math on that. So he
Mhm.
was into like Fuse TV, emo, rap, anything on MTV, VH1, Fuse stuff. So I got into a lot of the, post-hardcore, emo, metalcore stuff through him. And then that led me finding like Agnostic Front, Madball, Marauder through friends. Um, and it just led to me like finding my own stuff. When I first started playing in bands, it definitely wasn't hardcore. It was somewhat close, but
Mhm.
definitely wouldn't call it hardcore. Um, I remember being back in high school going to see Madball at like Drunk Horse Pub in Fayetteville in 2013, and that kind of sealed the deal. Them and Mongoloids, I saw them a few months back to back, and that kind of sealed the deal for me with hardcore and that community. Um, yeah, it was that like 12 years ago now. I've been doing hardcore and adjacent stuff, so it's been fun.
Yeah, it's fun. So from there, what led you to, because you're promoting now, you're doing a lot, not only promoting around your area, but you do, tours, you've helped booked and still do that stuff. So what led you go into shows, you're seeing Madball, said Madball show you go to leads to kind of like every weekend, obviously listening to all that music.
Yeah.
Do you recall your first show that you booked and what led you to want to do that and then building it from there?
Yeah, I want to say the first few shows I booked were like all local, bands from like a 30 to 40 minute away from each other area and like a little coffee shop in Southern Pines, North Carolina, about 15 minutes away from where I grew up. Um, and then that led to, people seeing that I booked shows through Facebook. I think that was the only real spot that people promoted back then. And it led to bands from New York, New Jersey, Florida seeing my page, seeing me putting on events. And I have some friends from Jacksonville, Orlando area called Secret Keeper that hit me up and asked if I could book a show on July 4th. And I didn't think anything of it, that it was a holiday. I was just a kid that saw a band wanted me to book them a gig, and I dug their music, so I booked them a show. I announced it, and it ended up being the same day as, I think it was one of those Life and Death Fest tours that happened like 10 years ago. I think it was like Turnstile or somebody the same
Yeah.
day. So I had to miss out on that. But that ended up leading to me booking, bands from New York, New Jersey, all along the East Coast. And then it kind of just spread word of mouth to guys all across the country. And 12 years later, I'm still doing it. Uh,
Still doing it, right?
yeah, exactly.
And you built it. So what are some challenges that you have in terms of booking shows sometimes? Now there's Fest, which we're going to talk about how you put together, we'll talk about the Overcome Fest, which is coming. It's coming in a few weeks from the time we're recording this, but by the time this comes out, it would have will have happened already. But we'll get into that. But what are some challenges with booking shows, and how do you navigate taking care of that? Is it there's shows that you get touring acts that want to come through, and then there's shows that you just want to put together that are locally. Well, how do you navigate going through all that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough trying to gauge what you want to book. If you try to set up too many events, you know, say it's April right now that we recorded this. If I wanted to book some local shows in September, we all know there's going to be a bunch of touring acts wanting to come through around that time that are going to hit you up last minute. So you're going to be booked up before anybody even asks you to like set
Mhm.
up something from out of state. So just, not overfilling your calendar, not oversaturating an area because there's not enough good bands in an area. There's a lot of young bands, but they're still not at the point where they can, carry a show themselves. Um, yeah, just not oversaturating. I used to have a show like every day or two back when I was like 18.
Mhm.
I was booking all throughout the state. Um, you know, different cities an hour and a half away from each other just because I felt like I had to, fill my calendar and help people out. And I mean, that goes into something else I want to say. You can't help out everybody,
Mhm.
whether it's a big agent, a big band on tour that doesn't have an agent, or just local bands around the area. Sometimes you have to say no.
Mhm.
Um, because if you take too many gigs, it's just going to hurt the gigs that you already have announced or haven't announced yet. So,
Yeah, it's there from what you were saying too. It's how you were answering that last part of the question was it was like almost actually like you said it without saying it's almost like a little self-reflection, like you learned from doing things when you were younger that like I
yeah,
can't do this now because if I do, it won't work. It may not work out what the bands want it to be, what you want it to be, because obviously
yeah.
all you want to do is put a great show together. So it's you feel like just with things like that, it's completely like a learning. You're still learning on learning with certain things and growing from things that you've done in the past, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've been doing this for 12 years. I've burnt myself out a lot over the past decade and some change, financially, physically,
Mhm.
mentally, whatever you may be it. It's it's a draining industry, but it's well worth it in the end. Um, I book for Blind Path Booking for local gigs. I book for Crank It Loud in our smaller cap rooms. I book for Overcome Fest, which is a more just hardcore and adjacent brand that we're doing regular shows outside of the fest we mentioned earlier, and trying to gauge like what I can do in each of these to not oversaturate the others is challenging in itself. But I like
Mhm.
having my hands in a lot of pots and helping out other people depending on the size of the band.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It sounds like you have a lot of. How many venues? I mean, you have various venues that you work with. How many venues would you say you have? And how did you find a lot of these venues? Was it over time, or I mean, you're calling, or it's just connections
Yeah,
and
it's
throw a
it's
combo?
definitely a mix. It's definitely a mix. I mean, being in a band for 10 years, or well, no, I guess it's more than that now, about 13 years. I I've had to play these rooms. I've had to grow relationships with these rooms to keep coming back, and then as I expand my booking portfolio, I needed rooms that I trusted with people that I liked. Because when you're booking a show, you're there before anybody, and you're leaving after everybody else too. So
Mhm.
you're around these people, these venues. So I like to work with good people. I've definitely worked with people I don't care about, but they're not worth mentioning. Um, and yeah, I probably have a good 6 venues I work with, you know, on a good week to week basis or month to month basis. Um, but over the state, I definitely have like 10 to 12 that I book at periodically. Because I'll book in Wilmington every now and again on the coast. I'll book in Raleigh at like three venues. Chapel Hill has one or two that I book at. Winston-Salem has a spot or two that I book at, DIY and not. Greensboro has two spots I book at, a 600 cap and a 100 cap. And then Charlotte has a few that I handle as well. So, oh, I wouldn't say handle. I go into those rooms,
Right.
but
So
yeah,
so it must be nice having. Sounds like you have a lot of different options, which is great
yeah,
because you're having probably with agents and bands, local bands coming your way, and you're trying to book tours. You could look at different options. So how does that go about? So you have so many. How do you decide what venue? You have a lot, so there's probably
mhm.
a lot of different ways you can go with this answer. But what? All right, an agent calls. They have a tour coming through. How do you decide? Okay, out of these venues I have, this will probably be best for this specific tour that's coming through. When you're looking at something like that.
I guess it just depends on the genre. Certain
Mhm.
scenes do better with each genre. With hardcore, there's, I mean, there's no wrong answer in North Carolina.
Mm.
I'm prioritizing Raleigh because I'm a 919 kid. I live in Raleigh. I play in a Raleigh band. Overcome is primarily in Winston-Salem. So that's in the Triad area. I mean, there's just certain bands that do better in different markets, different venues. Uh, I guess it also depends on capacity that the bands need. Say like a Pain of Truth can't play a 100 cap room. I mean, they could, but they're not gonna really have the best show financially that they would need from that.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it just depends. There's a lot of factors. It's hard to really just to
Right.
explain, after years and years of doing it, you kind of understand what works in certain areas and what doesn't.
Yeah. So it's like if you have a DIY hardcore band coming
Yeah.
down touring, you would obviously look at a different venue,
Yeah, exactly.
something
If you
like
have
that,
like a
basically.
band from Long Island that's only toured once and they don't have a dedicated draw, you're gonna put them in a cheap room that's gonna be low cost, low risk, so more money can go in their pocket in the night.
Yeah. And you're so it sound like it's still, and still as a promoter, because you're dealing with a million different things, you're still looking to take care of the bands and make sure they're playing in front of someone and
Yeah,
helping them out. Yeah.
exactly. That's the only reason why I'm able to do this stuff is because of bands. If I didn't have the bands, I wouldn't have shows.
Right.
You know, it's,
Right. Right.
I wouldn't be able to do this for a living.
Hmm. Now you spoke before. Uh, you were like going out until September. How far out will you look up? Tours are different because you can have agents,
Yeah.
I guess, come to you and be like, "Look, we're looking at something in the winter," But how far out do you look at booking shows? Would you? Because I'm sure some of the summer's getting lined up already. But how far do you go
Yeah.
out and look at? Like, when is it too far? In terms of setting up something.
I mean, right now, it just depends on the capacities of the rooms and level of touring you're at. If you're a younger band that's trying to hit the road, I would say 2 to 4 months, in like the small DIY spots, because you can find something that's just like a backyard or a pizza shop or whatever that's non-conventional. But I mean, I have shows that I'm setting up in December.
Okay.
Um, November range. A lot of shows booked in October already for like the larger 600 cap that I book at. Um, the more DIY stuff, I'm probably not really doing more outside of mid mid late August from like April now, So
Hmm.
4 to 5 months is pretty fair. Um, but I still have people ask me for stuff in June and May.
Yeah. It's
It
just
doesn't
coming
really
up.
have a
Yeah.
rhyme or reason, but
Hmm.
I hope those people can book their tours fully,
Yeah.
but it's stressful.
Yeah, it's got to be. And it seems so. It's like, and the reason why I bring that up is just for if someone's listening and is like, I'm interested in booking or going this, hearing
Mm,
all the different kind of avenues that you have to think about in terms of how far out, how close, how this, that. And it's nice that you have all those venues. So for you, you have a lot of different with Blind Path, Dynamic, you have a lot of different places that you're booking with and doing stuff. Uh, You have to is it just you or you have to have a team, right? How does that work out? Is there some shows that you're like, hey, maybe you guys do this one and they work with
yeah.
you, or how does that work?
For me, I mean, I have my hand in everything. With Crank It Loud, they're kind of like a big, talent buying company that's been booking shows for a few decades in the state. I hopped on board with them 2 years ago almost when I lost my job.
Hmm.
That kind of gave me the reason to go back full time with music. They book throughout the state. I run a lot of their shows, but when I'm not able to be there, I hire someone to be my point for the day. I'll walk them through whatever. With Blind Path, it's just me. I don't like booking a Blind Path gig if I'm not there.
Hmm.
It's kind of like my relationships fully through and through. Um, with Overcome, that's me and James Aloisio. I'm not sure if you know him, Long Island dude.
Hmm.
Um, music manager. Yeah, him and I do Overcome together. So if I can't make it, he'll be there. One of his guys in Insanity or like somebody from Winston will run the gig for us. Um, Vice versa. If he can't be there, I'll be there. Um, and yeah, it's I don't like to hire people to run my stuff for me if I can't because
You can't do it.
I like the relationship side of it. I like talking to bands. I like getting to know them. I like creating history, and I like giving them a reason to come back. They know they're going to work with me, not somebody random.
Hmm.
Because I've been on tour and I've played areas that my friends have booked or like colleagues that I've like met through this network, and they're not at the gigs. It kind of sucks, you know. You always want to like impress the right people when you're booking a show with them, and if they're not there, it feels kind of moot.
Yeah, and you have your hands in it. It sounds like in such a great way. But you say you love every aspect of it. And my next question was: it sounds like you have a show every weekend, at least, right? You have to with all the
Yeah,
venues. Are you able to make most, if not all of them? It sounds like the ones that you are really involved in. It sounds like you're there all the time.
yeah. With the hardcore ones, definitely, I try to be at like 95% of them. Some of
It's a
this
lot.
indie metalcore stuff, I'll pass on. I'll have a hardcore gig, and we have another show, say an hour and a half away in a different city. I'll have someone run that. Um, it just depends. I like to be at most of the stuff that I have a hand in, like
Yeah,
fully. But sometimes life happens. You're on tour, you're doing another gig. It just happens.
it happens. You have a band, right? You're playing out and stuff, so it's tough.
Yeah, yeah. I do Lucky Feeling. We try to play, at least once or twice a month. Sometimes that falls in line with a gig that I'm excited. Some friends of mine will be coming through. I can't be there. You just tell them sorry. I know I just said I like to be there, but sometimes you can't.
Can't be everywhere, man. Yeah.
I sell merch for bands here and there to make a little side money because this music stuff doesn't pay as well as it could. We all know that, but sometimes priorities happen. Bills are important.
Yeah. So yeah, like I know you came up north with Lucky Feeling. You played Mass Peak VFW Hall, Long Island, like in
Yeah,
February.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Scanlon and John from Golden Hour, Interlove booked that one. God's Eyes ended up dropping day of, but Nick and the boys, House does, took us, got bagels on the island and gave us a little, you know, areas of interest to go check
Yeah,
out.
see? Hmm.
Uh, my meal for the day was White Castle, so I didn't really experience great Long Island cuisine, but it was good enough for me. I don't have that down here.
So yeah, so something like that, for example, you were it was a 4 day show you were doing up north. You have to
Yeah,
drive, come back. Obviously, not you can't make the shows that were booked that weekend. You know.
yeah. I definitely took a little bit of time off in the beginning of the year. I had some family vacation. Haven't had that in like half a decade or so.
Mhm.
And then we had the run in late February up to, Long Island, Rochester, Baltimore, and Jersey. We played Cinco de Mayo and Jersey through Ricky and Negative Force guys. And then we did a run down to Atlanta and back based around the EP release in Greenville, Atlanta, and Raleigh that I booked myself. So I didn't have a lot of time to really focus for other people's shows. Because one, I wasn't really working because I was away from home. I didn't want to risk money that I wasn't making
Mhm.
um, in this game that we call music. But yeah, it it was fun. It was nice to get back on the road. I mean, we did like a run last August, and that was my first time on the road in 7 years or so.
Wow.
I mean, I'm 29 now, so like 7 years ago, everybody was having differing points of life,
Yeah.
going to school, getting married, trying to figure out if they wanted to be in a band. And I've been doing this shit since, and it hasn't changed for me, but I just didn't have the right group of guys. And now I finally have people that care about
No,
hardcore.
that's awesome, man. And
Yeah.
one more thing with the shows, and then I definitely want to talk Overcome Fest, and then definitely want to get into your band. So want to talk about that because you just dropped that new EP that kills. But so people see flyers, or well, I'll date myself with flyers, but or ads on Instagram,
Yeah.
or whatever you want to call them. But they see it and it's like, oh, cool, a show's put together. But there's so much work that's involved to putting it together. Then there's the day of the show, right? So you're at the shows. You said you're there. You're at the shows, but you're watching, but you're not really watching like if you didn't put a show together. There's a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
stuff that you have to do when you're at a show. So why don't you talk a little bit about that for the shows that you promote the day of the show when you're there?
Yeah. I mean, day of show is some of the best and worst part about setting up a gig. Because you have to be there before everybody. Uh, with the current scene of hardcore, you're also figuring out the back line for the bands on tour
Mhm.
that don't want to bring a trailer anymore. So I'm usually bringing a cab or two, uh, you know, waving down a drum set from somebody an hour away to bring it for a gig. Making sure everybody gets there on time. No one likes to respond day of, so you're waiting for everybody. Um, so you're sitting there awkwardly at the venue waiting and waiting, uh, getting the door set up for the people that are paid to be there, and making sure nobody runs past their set scheduled set time. A lot of local bands don't know what those mean. Um, I don't know. There's a lot of headaches come day of, but I like to just kind of like not focus on it.
Right.
Yeah, it's just making sure everything runs smoothly. I've been doing it for over a decade, so it's a little easier for me. Um, God, I don't know. I kind of just it's all muscle memory, so explaining it's tough.
Yeah,
Um,
you're just so probably used to doing it. It's just, yeah. And it's like you're ahead of anything that I feel like, even from talking with Scanlon and Christian and Joe Harcourt, it's like you guys are, if something happens that's not supposed to, it's like almost you're 10 steps ahead of and just
yeah, you've been
ready
there, done
for it.
that.
So it's situated and taken care of prior, I guess,
Yeah, the PA goes down, you know how to fix it or who to call to come bring you a new one. Or alternatives. I mean, usually there's no issues. Sometimes you have a band that doesn't show up on the right time. They're still like, stuck in traffic on
Right.
tour. You just stall the show, so it's not awkward. Um, I don't know. I just want to make sure people are aware of what they need to do before a day of, like basic advancing, tell them when they need to be there, what time they're playing, any gear that's going to be backline, if they can backline any gear to make sure the show runs smooth. Um, Discussing pay after, like what's your cut? Do you want to give it to the touring bands?
Hmm.
It just depends on like the level of the show too. But um, yeah, it's just making sure shit doesn't catch on fire,
That's
figuratively
the
and
biggest
literally.
thing. You don't want, yeah, literally, you don't want that. And it seems too like you have a great temperament for this. Like, like it's just, you're like, okay, this happens. We'll go to plan B or plan, like it's a very good, like, temperament. You can handle any situation that comes to you, honestly. And that's just even from what people that I know who have worked with you in the past have said that about you. You're easy to talk to, easy to work with. Um, do you have to though? I know you like getting yourself. You said with the booking aspect of it, and maybe it was this piece of it. And correct me if I'm wrong. You like keeping your hands in it in terms of setting things up, but you have to when you're at the show. You're running around doing a million and one things, kind of
Yeah.
describing what you're talking about. When you're at the venue, do you have a crew of people that okay, you're going to be at the door here. You're going to do that. If people that at least that stuff's taken care of, where you can run around with the other stuff that you're describing.
Yeah, when it's a DIY gig, yeah, I have a few guys, but most venues I work at already got people that are running sound, so I don't have to do that anymore.
Okay.
Got people running doors, so I don't have to do that anymore, etc. I remember back in the day, I used to run door, run sound for bands, and then play a set. And I don't
Exhausted
miss
here.
that at all. And then clean up the room and turn it back into like, a normal VFW with the tables and whatnot. But yeah, I've opted out of that type of lifestyle and just been booking at like smaller cap venues that are affordable.
Cool.
I used to book at a record store where I'll run sound, run the bands, and I was 100% in the show the entire time. If
Mhm.
anything was going behind schedule, it was because I made it, you know. It wasn't me cracking the whip on people anymore. But yeah, I mean, I have a few guys with Overcome. We have a lot of people that help out in the scene. There's a bunch of younger people that are booking shows and wanting to be a part of the scene outside of just going and playing in bands. So we try to have them on board with marketing and you know, watching door, check in, whatever. So we very grateful to have people that give a fuck about hardcore in the scene nowadays.
Mhm.
Back in the day, it was like one or two guys. There was a guy that in his like late 30s or early 40s that was booking shows, and he had a kid in his late teens that was booking, and that was about all. But
Yeah, now it sounds like you have a lot with that, and with Blind Path, all you guys and what you're doing. It sounds like there's a lot going on. Obviously, you're naming all these venues. There's a lot, a lot to choose
yeah,
from to do that. So, we're talking, Overcome Fest, and as I said, by the time this comes out, the third one will have passed. But you have pretty great lineup coming in. You have 2 days with E Town Bulldoze. You have Mind Force. You guys are playing as well,
yep,
like the second day, right? So, by
yep,
the time this comes out, that'll be over. So let's talk about what led to Overcome Fest. Was it something when this is the third year? If correct me if I'm wrong.
yep.
3 years ago, which was the first year, was this an idea that you and James that you mentioned had? Was it a one-off thing you were thinking about, or was this something like, let's make this a yearly thing in the spring? Because that's typically when you do it. In April, it's early May this year.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So there was a fest, I don't know if you're aware of it, Breast Fest
Oh,
back in
I've
the
yeah.
day.
Mhm.
Scotty P booked it. And it was, the who's who of hardcore at the time. Looking back at the lineups, don't see how he pulled off all of it. I know he's friends with a lot of the guys or connected with guys that are friends of friends, but uh, that stopped a few years before we did the first fest. And I wanted to kind of bring it back in a way. Talk to Scotty, got his, opinions on things, how he did it. And I was booking shows for like 9, 10 years at the point. So I
Mhm.
had connections with some agencies, managements, bands, etc. And I wanted to book a fest full of bands either that I brought through that year or that hadn't played the area in God knows how long. And I booked it around my birthday weekend, so April 1st. Um, and it it just led to an annual thing. I reached out to a few of my crew friends that were connected, got some contacts passed on to me, and I was having a little bit of trouble filling some reputable bands. And I called up James. I was like, "Hey, I know you're a manager of Koyo, Drain, and a few others." And I was like, "Would any of these bands be free?" None of them really were. So he was like, "You want me to help you with the fest? I can pass some of my contacts over, and we can tag team this." And I was like, "Cool."
Mhm.
I have no, issue working with people, and it's led to 3 years of working with a dude, and it's been great. I mean, he's well connected. If anybody looks up his work, he's well connected. His band Into Sanity is dope.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, they're very good.
and we've shifted from booking an annual fest to booking, quarterly shows, sometimes two a month. We try to just do one a month at most, kind of give highlight, but there's a lot of touring hardcore bands that need shows, and we feel like we're one of the best to really focus on it in the state. Um, and yeah, it's 3 years and a lot of money and a lot of
Mhm.
stress, but knocking on wood that it was very successful when this releases.
Yeah, you've had yeah, and I'm sure it will be because just look at the lineup and look at the lineup you had the year before, and
Mhm.
it keeps building every single year. So was the idea always to go 2 days, or you just it worked itself out with the two of you that you're like, it's just all of a sudden like, okay, we got this band, we have that band, and then you split the headliners.
Yeah, I mean, last year we did a pre-show. Year one, we did kind of a pseudo pre-show. We threw it together last minute. But year two last year we did Advent and a few like regional bands. We had Riot Stairs, Sun Touch House from Florida. We had Exit Strategy, Josh White's band, and then we had a few others. Can't remember the exact lineup for each day unless I looked at it. And we tried doing 2 days last year, but Gorilla Biscuits dropped their shows around that time. So instead of forcing a 2 day fest, we just turned into a pre-show and a 1 day fest.
Mhm.
This year we had too many bands on day one, and we really wanted to make the E-Town Concrete idea work. So we decided to do something stupid and put them in a 250 cap.
Oh, it's gonna be a
And
crazy show.
yeah,
I
that day sold out already.
can imagine. Yeah.
Day two's getting close, so it seems there's light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to this fest financially. It's well worth it already. It's going to be a great day. People are going to travel. They're going to love it. But it's it wasn't supposed to be a 2 day fest. We wanted to grow. We wanted to try to make it bigger for the state and give people a reason to travel down here and do more if they fly in or travel in. Just have more than one show worth of stuff for them to go to.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely doing that. People, I mean, Long Island here, people are definitely talking about it here. So, and that's, we're not around the corner from you guys. So it definitely is
Yeah.
doing what you want it to do. And it's only the third year. So that's my next question is when does Overcome Fest 4 start the discussion? Because
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's like, let's get through, like probably like Chris, can we get through the third one first? But when does the discussion say, hey, what about this band for next year at this time,
We've already started those
Yeah.
conversations internally, like bands that we couldn't get on year one or two, or three. We want to try to like make it finally happen. Like there's some OG bands in North Carolina. We want to not rehash that have been playing around like the states, but play a proper North Carolina show. Um, so there's a few in mind. There's some bands that have always been on the short list. Um, a lot of New York bands. I got a dude from Long Island booking the fest with me, so you're always going to see that New York connection. Um, yeah, we got bands in mind. We're gonna fully crack into it in May or June after the fest is over in May, and just get started on the heavy lifting, lock in the room, lock in some feelers with some hopefully no agents are having to be involved. We can just handle it through text and phone calls and
Mhm.
personal connections, but the music industry works that way. Um, But yeah, we already have ideas. We're trying to go bigger and better every year, while still keeping the DIY like ethos behind it. Because
Cool. You
it's
do.
hard to keep.
You do, but you merge that very well. It seems
Yeah.
like. So that was my next thing. I have a couple more, and then we'll get into the band. But do you ever stop and look what I'm doing to you? I'm asking you. So tell me about what you're doing a year from now. But do you ever stop and be like, "Yeah, damn, I booked that." And like, is there ever a moment where? Because I remember asking Scanlon that too. Uh, like, do you ever stop and think that, like, okay, yeah, I booked that, or it's just that you're always going. You have to because, like you said, you look at the reason why I asked you that before and what I led to what I'm asking you now is you're talking about June, but you're also looking into the winter. So you're like,
Yeah.
and I'm asking you a year from now. So do you ever just get that moment to stop, be like, man, that show really that worked out well. That was great.
Yeah, I definitely don't think about it as much as I do in like the moment.
Mhm.
I like to reminisce with people from time to time about it,
Mhm.
and really just go back to like what I've done since I was like a dumb 19, 18-year-old kid. Um, because like pre-COVID, booking the coolest bands, you had 70 to 100 kids at a show, and they were ecstatic. A $10 door, $12 people were throwing a fit at. Um, I remember booking. I mean, this kind of ages me too, being only 29. I booked Cruel Hand and Lifeless, and I thought booking Lifeless at the time was the coolest thing. Now that was pre-COVID, what, like probably 2016, 2017. This year we got them back on the fest. I didn't think we would ever book them again. I didn't think they would play that tour, you know? Um, yeah, just looking back at the shows, either I was a part of at venues I worked at or that I booked myself, it definitely doesn't get the appreciation as it did back then when a cool band will come through because it's happening every other day. And you know, in New York, you get in a show every other hour
Yeah.
that Scalen's a part of.
Hmm.
Um, Crazy lineups like that Suffocation lineup that Scalen just had.
Yeah.
I think we were on Long Island like a few days before, so if not after, and I was a little upset that I couldn't go to that. It was like Suffocation, Marauder.
Yeah, that was sick.
Uh,
That sure was. Yeah,
uh, but yeah, like nowadays there's just so much going on. It's kind of hard to appreciate because it's like, all right, gotta worry about the next one. We got
yeah.
this cool band this week. Like I just had Combust come through on the 10th of April, and show was great. Now I have to worry about the fest. I have to worry about another show. I have to worry about the 3 Haywire gigs we're doing in North Carolina. I have to worry about speed and just all these bigger shows. But I don't know. I like to look back at like the bands I was able to book when they were like worth 10 tickets. And now they're selling out 600 cap rooms, touring with Knocked Loose now. Hell, I booked Knocked Loose with like 50, 60 people at the show and then they blew up like a year later.
Yeah.
It's it's just cool to see like how people have grown. And the people in those bands are either in like crew jobs now or booking tours or management now. So I mean, we see that a lot with hardcore. They're in like office jobs now.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Crazy. It's cool, man. Yeah. So, what advice would you give to someone who's looking? I don't have to getting into promoting, but someone who's like starting booking shows. And you said you have some people that some kids and some that will help you out. But like, what advice would you give them if they're looking into getting into promoting?
Do it for the right reason. Don't do it for attention or money. Try to work with bands you care about and that care about you.
Hmm.
That will make the process more enjoyable than working with someone that's ungrateful. Um, and don't try to go too big too quick. Because
Hmm.
if you don't know how to book a proper show and you risk, say, a grand and a half on a band that you don't know what they're worth, and there's 30 tickets, you're probably going to get burnt and not want to book again. Um, if you're starting out booking shows, try to find a spot with low cost, ran by dudes that get it. Don't be afraid to ask for help from an older dude or older person in the scene. Um, 'Cause there's a lot of dudes in our area that I know will just lend a hand and guide people through the booking process and finding cool bands.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, just don't overdo it right away.
Yeah, and it's a lot. It's a lot of great advice, and it's like a few different things, that's important that you have to obviously look into, and that's important to be successful with this because it's not only it's promoting, it's you're also in a way, man. It sounds like almost like a project manager with stuff in terms of stuff that you're doing when you're
Yeah,
doing this.
yeah. I've ran the calendar at a venue in Fayetteville for years. I worked in renewable energy for 5 years doing project management. I'm always juggling like 8 things at once. That's actually about to happen, and then 30 to 50 things that are happening in the long term. Um, I don't know. It's just I like to have my hands in a lot of things,
Yeah.
and it stresses me out, and it stresses the people around me out, but it it's worth it most of the time.
Well, no, it seems it's going really well for you, man, which is great. So let's talk lucky feeling. There's it almost like when I hear you, it's got a heavy sound to it. The vocals are reminiscent to Sheer Terror a little bit, for me a little bit. I
Cool.
hear that a little bit. But the new EP is really, really good. Enjoying it. So, how did this come about?
Yeah, so I was in a band called Soul to Keep um around COVID to 2020. 2023 era. Um, and we had members of Fading Signal, Eyes Wide Shut, and a few other bands, and it just felt like the side project of everybody's current bands. So we would never be able to play, out of state, bigger shows. Never played a bad show in my opinion, but the guys had other focuses. So I decided to start a new band, and I hit up a young kid. He was like 19, 20 at the time. Ripper at guitar, the dude playing those leads on those songs that you listen to.
Mhm.
And he would talk to me at a gig. I think it was like 6 months before, and was like, "No one wants to start a band. Let me know if you know anybody that needs a guitarist." Time went by. I was getting bored of not playing shows. I needed hardcore bands on the shows I was booking. And I called him up. I was like, "Yo, do you want to do that band right away?" He sent me like six, like, non-structured song ideas that he midied out on like Reaper or something, and sent me the songs. I was like, "Cool, these are dope for the most part." Called up a drummer that I've known for years that was wanting to play in a hardcore band for the past 4 or 5 years since he uh got back into it, and we got up to jam like a week later. Called up some more guys that wanted to be in a hardcore band, and hey, we're here now.
That's
And
awesome.
we wrote, 4 songs, played a show, wrote two more, released that
That
EP a
was
year
on Call
later,
Your
and
Bluff. That was the
yeah, call your
yeah.
bluff. It's just all straightforward hardcore. We all decided to write some songs that had no fill, just straight at it, capital H hardcore, fun stuff. Definitely leaning like the Locking Out records era stuff. It's like we all love like Righteous Jams, Razzle Dazzle, and then mix like Floor Punch and uh, whatever else. Our drummer is a little older. He's late 30s now, so he definitely falls in line with like the 90s, early 2000s era
Mhm.
hardcore that I love it.
Mhm.
And
He's around my age. A
yeah,
little older.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Mhm.
he gets it, you know. And it just helped like that drum backbeat of the songs helped figure out what we wanted to do. Like we were like, oh, we can do like, the Mind Force, bouncy stuff. And we all started writing, we're like, we can't do that. Let's just keep it dumb, keep it simple, and have fun with it. We added a second guitarist so Nick could start playing some leads and some die bombs here and there and just have fun with it. And we started playing some gigs with some bands from Ohio and Jersey and wherever else. And we all talked about wanting to play out of town. And last year we started doing it and getting at it. So it's been fun.
Yeah, now you're doing it. You released your second EP, was it late March? Am I wrong? Or early March?
Yeah, it released sometime between February and March, depending on what site you look at. We
Right.
tried putting it up and it took forever to release, so we just got tired and put it on Bandcamp, and then the day later it released officially. Don't know when, but
It's
it
give or take the winter, right? Of this of 2020 of 2025. So how's it going with the new EP in terms of the
it's been
putting
good.
out and stuff like that?
It's been good. People know the words. Kids are moshing, kids are having fun with it. No complaints. It's definitely in the lane that we're trying to stick with when it comes to new songs. Uh, Guys have stepped up their writing process, and now it kind of means that I got to step up my writing process as a vocalist and uh, figure some more interesting things out with my voice and my lyrics and writing shit that means something to me. So
So that's a good
it's
question with
been
the
fun.
I was actually so I'm a singer, so or if you want to call me that, but
The
how
same.
how do you have lyrics already written, or do you need to hear the music and then you
I
write
mean,
over? Or
it
like
honestly depends.
mhm,
There, there's some stuff on like the Call Your Bluff EP that I wrote, I don't know, 8 years ago, like lines like
mhm.
two liners or whatever. There's other stuff that I wrote around that or by itself, just hearing the music. Um, I like to write themes, like I figure out a theme for like a sound or an emotion, and right around that when it comes to a project. I definitely write more like straight edge focused
Hmm.
approach with hardcore, a lot of shit talking, a lot of stuff about, family members that have addiction or um just stuff like that and just like personal shortcomings.
Hmm.
Um I try to get introspective without being too sappy and sad because it's just a hardcore band. No one really wants to hear that. If I wanted to write a band like Ruiner, I would start a band like Ruiner and it'll be my type of shit. But with Lucky Feeling, I just want to have fun. I want to talk shit. I want to just, dumb it down.
It's your out. It's just another outlet that's like so needed, right?
Yeah.
And like being able to sing and have the lyrics and do that, it's great. It's funny, what you said was, it's like same here. It's like I've had a couple of lines that I loved, that I loved, and then it's like, and then the music comes, and then I can, oh wow, I can incorporate this with the message I'm trying to portray with this. Like it's just
Yeah.
sometimes things just come that way, So with your EP, um, how do you feel? And you kind of said this, but both EPs rule, by the way. But for as
Thank you.
you as being in the band, do you and you kind of said it before, but do you see now? It's like, okay, we have our second EP. Is there any new material that you guys have written since? And do you see like, wow, we're growing with this? Like, I like where we're going with some of the newer stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't wrote much. I've had a few lines here and there that I've wrote over the past few months because I want to say we finished that stuff around December of last year and finished up the recording in January and got it mixed and mastered after. Um, I haven't really had time to even practice with the guys. I think they've
Yeah.
probably gotten together outside of the unit like once. I don't even know if we've gotten into like the practice space since. We had a very busy February, March, gearing up for the fest this year, beginning of May. So probably get up there soon. But I've heard some riffs, I've heard some demos. So there's some cool stuff. It might take a little bit to get like a promo together, but I think our goal is to get a promo up either this winter or at latest spring of next year. And
Okay.
then the guys are talking about doing a whole LP. Maybe we bring some of the songs like Turn My Head or All In or something from the EP and put it to an LP with maybe like Pay My Dues or something that carries like the same vein of hardcore. Um, but yeah, it's just we're just trying to have fun. We're
Yeah.
it ain't really a full-time thing for us. Everybody works. But I want to put out new stuff because I mean, man, it's fun.
It is. There's nothing better than it, honestly. I don't even know how you find time to do all that stuff, just with the, with the shows, work, all that kind of stuff.
Shit, you don't.
But
But yeah,
it's for this, yeah.
yeah,
But you make it though with this, like you said, it's fun. The band is fun. That's
yeah,
it. If you keep that perspective of it, there's nothing better than it.
yeah. I've been in bands with dudes that they work a 9 to 5 or a 8 to 3 or whatever the hell it can be, and they have no time for anything. They don't do anything outside of work, but
Hmm.
I'll be 37 days straight, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll practice tomorrow. It doesn't matter. It's just time. You're not
Hmm.
gonna make any more of it.
That is true. That is true. That is true. But that's awesome though, and it sounds like within a 1 year plan for the band. Hopefully, definitely a promo, maybe EP, maybe a full length. Maybe an album.
Yeah,
See how it goes.
it'd be perfect. We'll
Yeah.
we'll see how long it takes us to put out something else. We've been doing something once every year now, so if we get something out in early spring, we're in line with everything.
Cool. Cool. So, uh, what advice would you give to yourself as a teenager? And it could be it could be professionally, personally, whatever it may be.
I mean, just don't care as much. Not about like booking gigs or anything, but just don't care what other people think as much. I was always trying to impress or win over groups of people. I mean, I never really played in like hardcore, straightforward hardcore bands. So I was always in like a adjacent style band that
Mhm.
felt like a black sheep on a lot of lineups. And I wanted those people to like me. or like my band, even though it wasn't music they liked. So I wish I would have noticed earlier that it doesn't matter if that group likes you or not, someone else might,
Hmm.
and you can find your own scene. And I mean, I found that out later in life, early 20s, that like it's fine. You can just do your own thing.
Right.
But I would definitely tell my teenage self, just do your own thing.
Yep. Sure, man.
Find your
Absolutely.
own lane.
Yep. So, what we'll end off here is I have a bunch of questions, and really it's just the first thing that comes to mind when I ask them. Some of them are just you have to choose between. If you want to elaborate on why, go ahead. Okay. Would you rather book a show or a fest?
I would rather book a really cool show.
Hmm.
I like showcases more than the fest. I mean, the fest is more of like a fan service thing.
Hmm.
I'm only 29 and I've been too old for fests this entire like half decade. I want to watch four bands, take a 2 hour break, watch a few more bands, and then catch a little bit of the headliner, then bounce.
Hmm.
Um, but with Showcase, you booked five really good bands from like, I mean, like if I can book like a standstill or something with like a bunch of bands down here, I'll be ecstatic.
Hmm.
Or, hold my own with a lot of really dope, interesting hardcore bands. I'll be happy.
Hmm.
But yeah, I would rather have a show.
No show. Any day of the week,
I know I
right?
do the fest every year, but like I would rather just do like showcases.
Full. Now this might be tough, but favorite band that you booked?
Shit. Um, I really can't even figure that out. I've had some really cool shows that I've booked, but even then they're not that cool on paper. It was just the memories of those shows and the feelings of being like a 20-year-old booking a crazy hardcore show.
Hmm.
Um, shit, best show. I think that Lifeless, that gig that I was talking about,
Hmm.
like pre-COVID 2017, 2016 range was, you know, I can book these bigger hardcore shows now. I
Like I could do this. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hold my own with the old heads. I can hold my own with, you know, this type of industry.
Hmm.
I don't know. I book all types of genres, so there's probably a band or two from each genre that I could say, but I don't know. I got too much to worry about that's coming up to really pinpoint what was like a deciding point in my life.
Hmm.
Man, yeah, I'll circle back to that one. I'll text you about
No problem.
that.
A band that you haven't booked that you would like to.
Hmm.
You've had a lot of bands, so I don't even from all different genres.
Yeah,
But
man. In hardcore, I would like to book Ceremony and see them
mm,
play some throwback sets. I've seen that band play over the years, but they were one of the, you know, seal the deal type bands when I was younger. Violence, Violence is one of those hardcore records that made me want to write, faster, pissed off hardcore. Um, I would like to book Ceremony.
cool.
Band's just cool. They touched every side of like the subgenres around hardcore while still keeping the hardcore heart behind it.
Yep. You have a lot of venues, but what's your favorite venue to book a show?
Right now is Kings in Raleigh. It's a 250 cap full of like the nicest people. They
Mm,
book a lot of indie rock. They let me do my hardcore, metalcore, deathcore stuff, metal stuff, and it's just ran by dudes that give a fuck
mhm.
and people that give a fuck. Hoots and Winston's a really cool spot. Eric from Code 7 runs it, so he gets it. Plays in a band, wants people to be,
Cool.
taken care of with the sound in the room, and those are two rooms that I really dig right now in
Is
North
Hoots,
Carolina at
I could be
least.
wrong. Is that the one of those? Is that the first night for Overcome or no?
Yeah, Hoots is where we got E Town. It's a little
You got
250
the E-Town
cap.
show going. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had Koyo there. We've had Chamber. We've had, oh God, we've had a lot of stuff there. Into Sanity's done a few gigs there. Yeah, we're utilizing it to its fullest extent. So
Cool.
we got Haywire playing there in the summer. It's a cool
uh,
spot. They let us do our thing and they don't really care. The hole happens in the, like, a hole gets put in the wall. He just drywalls it, you know, just
Uh,
covers the hole. Doesn't bitch about it. He just, this is what I signed up for.
that's important to work. You're working
Yeah.
with someone like that. That's great. Takes a little
Yeah.
stress off of that piece of it too, which is awesome.
Yeah. The first one, I was a little worried. It wasn't even my gig. And I saw a hole. And I was like, yo, Eric, is everything cool? He's like, I don't care. Sheetrock's
Uh,
cheap. So I was like, cool. A lot of dudes
uh,
get mad about a $25 fix. So
mhm. That's
I'm
not.
glad he
That's
wasn't one of
great.
them. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
favorite show you played as a band?
Favorite show I've played is Lucky Feeling. There was a gig we played in Atlanta at Culture Shock when they first opened up. Kong Style, 38 Snub, and Reason to Hate, and I want to say there was one more band. No, I think that was all. And that was dope. Jailbird was on tour with us, so it was a fun first, you know, actually getting out, playing in front of new kids. Very young scene in Atlanta right now, and it just made me feel good that other people had very healthy young scenes.
Mhm.
That show was dope. Jersey at Cinco with XL Bully, that band's sick. That was fun. Rochester, we played this community center called like Flying Squirrel, and Who Decides played. Members like Such Gold and a few other bands I used to like as a kid.
Mhm.
And there's like 100 and some kids. They said we stopped counting at 100. 100 kids in this upstairs community center that just understands like helping the community. Like they were cooking food for like homeless and needy people
Uh,
right below. They had like, um, free Gaza and Palestinian flags in the building. Like fit like the message that hardcore is about, not trying to profit off of hardcore as well.
mhm.
I feel like that gig might be my favorite right now. That gig
Cool.
in Rochester had garbage plates right after. It was awesome. It was cool.
It's a favorite show you went to. I mean, there's a lot, but a couple that stand. I guess a couple that stand out in mind that you're like, wow, this was first band to last band was just incredible.
Oh man. First gig, like best gig. I feel like I'm just gonna go back to the first hardcore show I went to. Like real deal hardcore show. It was that Madball, Expire, Code Orange Kids tour in Fayetteville. It was like 300 and some people, bunch of scary dudes when I'm like a 125-pound kid from high school.
Mhm.
Sealed hardcore for me. That was probably one of the funnest nights I've had, and I try to relive that when I'm setting up gigs.
That's cool. So, writing or performing?
Depends. With the right crowd, performing is dope. With the worst crowd, I would rather be writing. But I don't know.
All day,
Any
every day.
show is cool.
Yeah.
It honestly depends. Like I like the guys I have in my band, so writing is just fun. It can be frustrating going through the same song or same part 90 times, but live you get one time. If you fuck it up, it's like, who cares?
Right.
Um, I don't know, man. I'm 50-50 on that one.
hmm So, a great show, right? You're having a great show, or booking a great show, or like performing wise, or booking a show.
I don't know, man. I would rather just play a show sometimes.
Mhm.
We played in Wilmington like recently, and I didn't have to do anything. Didn't bring a single piece of gear. Didn't have to worry about times. Just sold merch, hung out with friends, played my little silly 15-minute set, and that was all.
Let me ask you that. So, not around your area, but when you're playing, um, is there a moment you're like looking over your shoulder, you're like, oh shit, I'm not doing the show. I don't have to really. I could just hang here.
You sometimes like usually I get like lumped in. People are asking me questions, but I
Mhm.
mean, before I would hop in, like I would be at shows and somebody sucks at running sound, so I have to hop in and tweak their settings so it's not feedback in the entire time or people could hear whatever in like a little community center. Um, but lately, I did this when we started touring. Like I wouldn't say tour, we started going on the road and playing shows out of state. My band would ask me questions, and I would tell them what I knew, and they asked me more stuff, and I was like, "Not my show. I don't know. Don't know."
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing that more and just actually enjoying my time at a gig.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been cool to tell people, not me, talk to someone
Not you.
else.
So you could clearly it's good to and separate the two, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
I spent 12 years not, so it's a new thing for me.
right,
Makes you feel like an
right.
asshole, but like sometimes you have to.
No, you have to for sure, right?
Yeah.
All right, a couple more, man. So, and this can go anywhere, and you could be influential. It could be your favorite. It could be different genres of music, but your top three albums.
Oh fuck. Top three albums. Violence Violence is still one that gets replay for me by Ceremony. Oh fuck. That Righteous Jams EP like album with Invasion. Can't remember the fucking name. That one, top of the list for me right now. Um oh, Orly Gartland's new pop record. That one's dope.
Cool. And
I don't know.
different styles
I,
there, and they could
I,
change. You could hit me up later, like, no, this, that, but
yeah, I'm
that's
more
the
of
whole
like a
thing.
song guy, or like an EP, full
Mhm.
records. I don't know. There's a lot that I'm gonna kick myself. It's like, oh, you should have thought of that one, but I can't think right now. My brain's fried. I just got off work.
Here's the last one here, and I think I'm going to know your answer because for people listening to this is an audio podcast, but you and I are on Zoom, and in the
Yeah.
background you have a whole display of your vitals. So my question was vinyl or digital. So, so I actually have an idea what you're going to say here after your background here, but I figured I'd ask anyway.
I like collecting things,
Hmm.
and whether it's CD, I have a big CD collection. Uh, I used to have way more vinyl records, but being unemployed or like between jobs, I would rather pay my bills than hold on to a piece of wax. Sold a lot of my records, but I would say records, vinyl, tape, CD. It's nicer. If I could put like a 7 inch in my car stereo, I would do it, but it doesn't work that way. So I don't really I don't really spin them as much as I used to.
Hmm. They're great to
But
collect, though. I'm with you.
yeah, I mean, I go into a store and I see the same thing that I bought like 10 times, and I'm like, oh, I got to buy it again, even if I sold it every other time. It still feels like the first time you find it.
Hmm. Dylan, man, this was an awesome conversation. Appreciate having you on here. Before I end it off, and then we'll wrap it up when we get off. Is there anything you want to end with?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do something, do it.
Hmm.
That's just all I want to say.
Simple as that, right? It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dylan, thanks, man. Hang tight. Let me wrap it up, and then we'll talk after I get off.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you for listening to the What Lies Ahead podcast, which is available on all streaming platforms. Go save the What Lies Ahead podcast playlist on Spotify that features all bands that were on the show. For more information on future episodes, you can go to my Instagram account and follow us at What Lies Ahead _podcast and on Facebook by searching What Lies Ahead podcast. See you on the next episode.